You know how sometimes you hear a question and it makes you pause for a second? Like, wait, why didn't I think of that before? That changes everything. Over the past few years, I have come across a few of these questions that made me rethink my choices, my habits, and even how I see myself. So today I want to share 7 questions that have had the biggest impact on me, the changes they led to in my life, and how they might end up changing yours too. The first one is, what is enough for me? This is one of the most powerful questions I have ever asked myself. For years, I don't think it even crossed my mind. I was just doing what most people do, always looking for the next thing, more stuff, more experiences, more achievements. I would finally get something I had been working towards, enjoy it for maybe a week or two, and then my brain would immediately jump to, okay, what's next? Then in 2016, I watched Matt Diavella's documentary about minimalism, and not long after I came across a TED talk from a guy who traveled the whole world with almost no money at all. And they just looked so free. Not free because they had everything, but because they didn't seem to need much at all to be happy. And I realized I had never really stopped to define what enough meant for me. I had just kept going, hoping to reach that one day. So I started paying more attention to it in my own life, testing what would happen if I stopped adding and started living with less. Living abroad with only a small amount of stuff and going through many rounds of decluttering and simplifying made me notice how much lighter life can feel when you are not managing so many things. Now I think of this not just in possessions, but in many areas of life. And I always try to find what is enough. Because too often we worked hard to reach a certain level only to realize we didn't even need that. Once you start figuring out what enough actually means to you, another question naturally comes up. And that is, if I stopped chasing more, what would I do with my time? So at some point I realized I already had enough in many areas of my life. Without the constant next thing pulling me forward, I had to face the question, what do I actually want to do now? I remember thinking, okay, if I had all the money and all the time in the world, how would I spend it? And the first things that came to my mind were actually quite simple. I would want to do something creative, something where I can express myself and hopefully help other people along the way. And that is how this YouTube channel really started. And then I would take better care of my home. I would be more present for my family and the people I care about. I wouldn't be the person who says, no, sorry, I cannot do that, I'm way too busy. I would make time to try new hobbies, but also to go deeper into the ones I already enjoy. I would play more board games, have more deep conversations, go for walks without any destination at all. Life would feel more like a journey to experience rather than a game I have to win. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized I don't need to wait until someday to live like that, aligned with my values. I can create space for those things now. And that intentionality led me to another question, which was, what effects of my actions am I not seeing? This is one of those questions that makes you stop in your tracks a little. It's not something we usually think about, but once you do, you start questioning so many choices and even your values. Sometimes you do something that feels harmless, but if you looked a little deeper, you would see it has a bigger effect than you thought. Like, who else is affected? What happens over time? What is the bigger story here? For me, this is things like shopping. I try to think of not just like, do I need this? But what is the environmental cost? Who actually made it? With fast fashion, for example, there are real people in that chain and often they are the ones who are paying the price for our cheap clothes. The same goes for social media. It's easy to scroll without thinking, but it can slowly ruin your mood, your focus, and even how you see yourself. It shapes what you think is normal, what you think you should want, and before you know it, you are comparing your life to somebody else's. And a really big one for me was veganism. I realized I didn't want to be part of that animal exploitation anymore, especially when there are so many other options now. You only see the end product, but I think it's really worth asking, what am I supporting with my choices, my money, my time? Is someone suffering because of this choice that I am making? And this is not about overthinking every little move that you make. It's just seeing the bigger picture and making sure the action you take actually fits your values. The fourth question is, what pain do I want in my life? This one sounds a bit strange at first because we are used to avoiding pain, not choosing it, especially intentionally. I came across this a few years ago in a book I bought for a completely different reason, and somehow this idea is what really stayed with me from that book. The truth is, life will have pain no matter what. There's physical, emotional, mental, financial. You can't avoid all of it. And if you don't know what you want in your life, you will be told what you want and you will believe it. So now, instead of asking, how can I avoid struggle, I try to ask, which struggle is worth it for me? Running is a really good example. The early mornings, the sore legs, the long training sessions, all of that is pain I am willing to choose because it gives me health, it gives me a sense of achievement and mental clarity. Minimalism is another one. It's not always easy to let go of things, to say no to cool new stuff, or to sometimes feel like you don't quite fit in this society or your social circle. But I will take that over the stress of too much stuff and constant consumption. And if you're not into running or minimalism, raising a family can be the same. There's endless responsibilities and challenges, but chosen because of the meaning it brings. Choosing your pain means taking ownership of the trade-offs in your life, and the more you do that, the less you end up with struggles you never asked for. And when you start looking at life this way, you have to check in with yourself more often, because sometimes the pain you have chosen is worth it and sometimes it is not. That's where I started asking myself the fifth question: what's going on inside me at this moment? I first came across this back in 2017 when I read Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, and it really helped me start getting more awareness of what I was feeling, both mentally and physically. This question is about pausing to notice what is actually happening inside you right now. What are the emotions? What are the sensations? And if you want to take it further, there is a second level to it. Why do I feel like this? What triggered it? Was it something someone said, something you saw, or maybe just a thought that you had? And then there's even deeper, the third layer. Why do I consider this good or bad? By what standard am I measuring myself? Is that standard even mine, or did I pick it up from somewhere else without realizing? Going through these levels or layers can break patterns you didn't even know you had. It challenges your beliefs, and instead of reacting automatically, you suddenly have the space to respond more intentionally. For me, going through this really changed my life. I got way more self-acceptance because I could see my feelings for what they were, not as proof that something was wrong with me. But here I have to say that it is a skill though. At first you might only realize what was going on after the moment has passed, but with practice you start catching yourself in the moment, and that changes everything. The more you do this, the more you start to notice what is really driving your actions, and that leads us to the sixth question: am I acting from love or from fear? This one is all about looking at the real motivation behind what you do, the choices you make, the habits you keep, even the little day-to-day decisions. And when I say love, I don't just mean romance or anything like that. I mean openness, care, connection, and trust both in yourself and in others. Fear, on the other hand, can be things like anxiety, avoidance, insecurity, needing to control everything, worrying about what people think, or protecting your ego. The tricky thing is that the same action can come from either love or fear. The difference is in the intention, not the action itself. You might, for example, work hard because you genuinely love the work and feel passionate about it. Or you might work hard because you are afraid of losing status, losing approval or income. With minimalism, you might declutter because you love the feeling of space and calm. Or you might declutter because you are afraid of being judged for a mess or losing control over your surroundings. And it's the same with relationships. You might spend time with someone because you truly care about them, or because you're afraid of being alone or upsetting them if you say no. Fear-driven choices often feel urgent, heavy, and draining over time. Love-driven choices, on the other hand, tend to feel energizing, calm, and uplifting. It would be nice to act from love 100% of the time, but that is very difficult. We are human after all. Most of us are a mix, I think, and it shifts depending on what is going on in our lives. The point is just to notice when fear is steering you somewhere you don't actually want to go. And that leads us to the final question, which is, if I keep living exactly like this for the next 10 years, where will I end up? This is what I think of as a zoom out question. It pulls you away from the day-to-day life and makes you look at where you are going, not where you hope to end up, but where your current habits, routines, and mindsets are actually taking you if nothing changes. This can be motivating, but it can also be a bit confronting because it shows you whether your life is aligned with your values or slowly drifting away from them. It also helps you spot patterns that might be invisible in the short term, but over a decade could completely shape your future. Think, for example, about your health habits. If you keep doing what you are doing now, where will those take you? For me, this was one reason I started focusing more on mobility and stretching, not just the fun hobbies and workouts, but actually caring for my body so it still works well in 10 years. Or work. If you keep working the way you do now, what will your career and your energy levels look like? That was a big one for me. I realized there is no point in working and stressing so hard that I burn out, especially when I could have around 40 years left in my career. I would much rather pace myself than crash halfway through. The point of this question is to notice whether your current path feels right or if it needs a course correction. Because if you don't like where it's heading, the best time to shift is not in 10 years, it is now. So take a moment and ask yourself these questions, see which ones stick with you, and let the answers guide you from here on. Oh, well, it's out already. Thank you so much for watching. Remember to stay kind and meaningful in your own beautiful journey. See you in the next one.